Can I show you how to get customers for your startup? No, because nobody can. Asking how to get customers is asking the wrong question. But that doesn't stop experts from making promises that they can't keep. I think they're selling you snake oil. Yes, all founders want customers, and everybody wants to fall in love too. But experts cannot promise customers for your startup any more than they can promise to set you up on a date where you're guaranteed to meet your soulmate. The truth is that not every date ends in a marriage. In fact, most don't. And not every startup idea gets customers. In fact, most don't. What matters is that pursuing a startup idea is a huge investment in your time. So here's the right question. Is this startup idea worth your time? In other words, if you pursue the startup, what are the chances of it ever getting a customer? Good news, Nascent methodology has the answers to this question. Welcome to the Nascent podcast. I'm Mike Vladimir. Startups with customers face different challenges than startups with no customers. But conventional entrepreneurship strategies don't make this distinction. There's no playbook A for startups with customers and playbook B for startups with no customers. So you struggle because your playbook doesn't work. Nascent is the playbook for startups with no customers. This is episode 21. No, getting customers is the wrong goal. Instead, search for people and pain. There's good reason that everybody in entrepreneurship talks about focusing on customers. There's tons of companies who lost that focus and it led to their failure. Kodak focused on film when their customers went digital. Borders Books and Blockbuster focused on physical stores when their customers went online. And those businesses famously failed. So focus on the customer became a key lesson in business, especially since successful companies like Amazon embrace their customer obsession, which clearly drive its success. Ignoring customers is a recipe for failure, at least for companies that have customers. What's less clear to me is what focusing on customers means for a startup with no customers. My message to founders of startups with no customers is that you should embrace having no customers. In fact, I think it's best to not even say the word customer and instead to reframe your challenge. The thing about customers is that they're a commitment. When a business has customers, those customers have paid money to that business to solve their problem. And those customers, very reasonably, are counting on that business to continue to solve that problem because of the track record. So when I say embrace having no customers, what I'm talking about is that you have no commitments right now. You have no track record. This is a special opportunity that you can take advantage of. I'm going to bet that you have more than one startup idea right now. And if today all you have is this one idea, I'm going to bet that you'll have another idea in a few months. It might be a variation of your current idea, or it might be something totally new. It does not make sense to me to go all in on this commitment to create this startup to try to get customers right out of the gate. In fact, I think you should take the opposite approach. Instead of committing and doing something really heavy, I think you should treat your startup right now while you have no customers. Just treat it as the light project that it is instead of a heavy business with customers and commitments. Taking advantage of having no customers is one thing I want you to think about. Another big idea is the fact that most startups fail, and the most common reason that they fail is lack of customers. So when you've got a startup with no customers, your first step should not be to try to get customers because that's too much work. Trying to get customers comes at a huge cost of your time. And statistically, the most likely outcome is that you're going to invest a ton of time trying to get customers, often a year or more, and you'll have nothing to show for it. No customers, nothing. I can attest to this personally. So instead of the cliche advice to focus on customers, I'm advocating for you to take a different approach. Instead of trying to get customers, instead you should look for a signal indicating the chances of your startup ever getting customers. You can think of building your startup kind of like building your own airplane. Yes, you want to fly, but getting in the air is a long-term goal because it's complicated and time-consuming. Instead, your first step should be to measure your plane's ability to generate lift. Because if you can generate even a little bit of lift, there is a possibility that your airplane can fly. And if you can't generate lift, the chances of flight are doubtful, and you're probably better off working on a different airplane altogether. To be clear, I do not want to dissuade you from pursuing your startup idea. I only wish you success. I just want to set the bar ridiculously low to identify an opportunity worth pursuing. I want you to have a super simple litmus test so that within days, it'll be really obvious whether it's even remotely possible for your startup to get customers. And then when you go into this year-long project of actually trying to get those customers, you have some reason to believe that that's possible. Here's another metaphor. Instead of creating a successful startup, let's say that you want to play ball for the Yankees. Well, getting into the major leagues is going to take a ton of effort. So how do you know if you should try? You're athletic? But how do you know that baseball is the right sport for you? Clearly, professional baseball players hit home runs, so maybe trying to hit a homer is a reasonable test for whether you could be a pro. Nope. Home runs are too complicated. It's rare and special for even a professional baseball player to hit a home run. What matters for you is that every swing at bat, every week that you're working on your startup, that is an expensive use of your time. The higher you set the bar, the more time and effort you need to invest before you can get that initial signal whether this project is worthwhile or whether you're wasting your time. So what's a better test than trying to hit a home run? How about, can you even get the bat to hit the ball? Because if you can get the bat to hit the ball, then there's a chance that you could play for the Yankees. I hope you find this funny because it's true. But think about it. Anyone who's ever been a Yankee started by making sure that their bat could hit a ball. And if you cannot get the bat to hit the ball, the chances that you play for the Yankees are really doubtful. And maybe there's another sport that's better for you. To be clear, once you get that bat to hit the ball, you've got a ton more work to do before you become a Yankee. But at least you have a reason to believe that it's worth the effort, that you have a chance at professional baseball. You have a reason to believe it's worth investing more of your time to pursue this difficult path. And it's the same thing with startups trying to get customers. Yes, real companies, professionals, they have customers. But testing your ability to get customers is a bar that's just too high. It's too complicated. Even when a company gets a customer, that's rare and special. That's why these companies have professional sales teams. If you've got a startup with no customers and you're focused on getting customers, then you're setting the bar way too high. You're pursuing an initial signal that is too complicated. Okay, so if we're building an airplane, we're saying that our initial signal that we have an opportunity worth pursuing is if the airplane can generate some lift. And if we want to play for the Yankees, we're asking, can we just get the bat to hit the ball? But we are entrepreneurs, so what is our quick, simple test for whether to invest lots of time in a startup? Well, anyone who's ever been a customer of anything ever always starts as a person in pain. So I don't want you to try to secure paying customers. Instead, I want you to search for people in pain, and I want you to quantify their pain in dollars. And if you can find people with expensive pain, with an expensive problem, then there's a possibility that your startup could be successful. Of course, if you find these people, you've got a ton more work to do, but at least you have reason to believe that someday your startup might have customers. And if you can't find people in pain with expensive problems, then the chances of success for that specific startup idea are doubtful. And maybe you want to move on to a different project. Hopefully you're thinking, okay, Mike, no more trying to hit home runs. You convinced me. Let's instead search for people in pain. You're making that sound easier. Good news. Yes, searching for people in pain is way easier than trying to get paying customers. And bad news. Searching for people in pain is still really hard. It's easier than trying to get customers, but it's still really hard. Why? Because searching for people in pain means looking for an invisible component in a knowledge creation project. This is a big idea. People in pain might become customers, and a knowledge creation project might become your startup. Creating a startup requires creating new knowledge about people in pain. And this is what makes searching for people in pain so hard and so important. So next time you see a promise for a surefire way to get customers, I hope you don't get lured in. Instead, I hope I've begun to shift your thinking. Yes, ultimately, your startup does need customers, but they are at the bottom of the funnel. Pursuing customers is a long-term project, and if it's all you focus on, you're likely to waste a ton of time, and I don't want to see you wasting years. That's the ridiculously low bar that I want to set for you. You're no longer trying to hit a home run. Now you're just trying to get the bat to touch the ball. If you've got a startup idea, I'd love to hear about the people in pain that you're searching for. Who do you think they are? How many of these people have you spoken with? You can share with me on Twitter @NascentIdea or email me podcast@nascentidea.com or leave a comment below. If this episode changed how you think about your startup, subscribe to learn more about how to navigate startups with no customers. Please share this with another founder who's been stuck chasing customers, and leave a rating. It really helps other founders find this podcast. Okay, founders, let's find opportunities worth pursuing. You got this.